Hi, you're watching Program Pride. My name is Todd James, and my co-host Spinstergirl isn't here today. She's off interviewing the dynamic Svend Robinson. We're at the Alberta Summit, and for the show, we will be featuring an interview that I did with Delwin Vriend, as well as Spinstergirl's interview with Svend Robinson. As well, Program Pride's correspondent Dan Stern and myself interviewed a number of participants at the Red Deer College where the Alberta Summit was held by just people. So we're going to go to some of those segments in a little while, but first, please join me for the next few minutes with my conversation with Delwin Vriend. Hello, my name is Todd James, and I'd like to welcome all of our viewers to Program Pride's edition at the Red Deer Summit. Today with us in the amphitheater is Delwin Vriend. Delwin, you've been called the giant killer by Alberta Report. How does that feel? I mean, that was a few years ago. That was first when the original trial was held.
Right. Actually, being called anything insulting by the Alberta Report feels good.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's a giant killer by any means. What we're doing here is something that needs to be done, and we're just going ahead and forging away in Alberta, I guess.
Did you ever think when you started the trial that it was going to be as big as it was? Did you know that going in?
Well, I think I knew it in my head, but I didn't really know what was going to be happening. I was warned that this is going to be a long process.
You will not have a life.
No,
you will be scrutinized.
Well, yeah, I was warned about media and so on, and for the first, I would say for the first 6 months, media attention was a little bit overwhelming.
But they didn't search through your garbage or anything?
I don't think so. I hope not. Who knows what they would have found? But that's gotten a lot less. The lawyers are really taking care of the thing right now. It's got a life of its own. It's going ahead, and I don't need to be all that intimately involved in the day-to-day details. Thank God, because there's a lot that goes on there. But,
do you think that in any way you've distanced yourself from the case? Can you do that? I mean, is it
I think in some ways I've had to a little bit in the last couple of years, just not deal with it so much on my own on a day-to-day basis, to forget about it for a while, because I think it was becoming quite overwhelming.
So now along the way, I mean, just recently, a few months ago, the decision from the Court of Appeal.
Right.
Justice McClung had some very not nice things to say.
Some very redneck things to say, I would say.
This coming from Nellie McClung's grandson.
Yeah, exactly. Figure that one out. It was a really disappointing decision, one that we did not expect at all. We did expect Justice McClung to rule that in that direction. We did not expect him to agree with us, but we were hoping that the other two judges would see our points. The one did.
Now that was the female justice.
That's right. I forget her name offhand, but yeah, that was interesting. It was the youngest judge, and it was a female judge who did agree with us. Unfortunately, the majority decision was against us, and for the government side.
Now, looking back on this, some opponents or some people may question you were working for a religious college,
right.
and some people may put it across that they're a religious institution. They have certain beliefs that are protected by the charter, and they had every right to dismiss you.
Right.
How do you answer questions like that?
Well, the way I answered it is by saying we have no idea whether they have the right to or not, because we couldn't get to the Alberta Human Rights Commission. And that's what this case is about, my access to the Human Rights Commission, not being fired from the King's College. And
that's why you decided not to pursue King's College in some type of litigation?
That's right. We could have gone against the King's College. I could have done a private litigation looking for some money. We decided fairly early on that the benefits there wouldn't be all that great even to me. Monetarily, there wouldn't be much there. And that the greatest benefit would be recognizing that the Alberta Human Rights Commission had no jurisdiction here because of the laws in Alberta, and that's what we needed to change. So that's the route we went.
Now, I can remember GALA, the Gay and Lesbian Alliance.
Yeah, Gay and Lesbian Awareness.
Awareness, sorry. Now, before they became involved with your case, I mean, there were several other cases, but no one ever came forward before. Do you find some people say, wow, you're really courageous to go all this way? Do you really think you're courageous, or do you think anyone would do that?
I'm not sure if anyone would do that. Maybe I was just being stupid, not realizing exactly what would be involved here. I don't think it was as bad as some people thought it would be. I think it was worse than I thought it would be. But you know, it wasn't that big a deal. The lawyers take care of the legal part of things. There are people on the financial side of things taking care of that. So really what I've had to deal with is the media side of things. And that was stressful at first.
Sometimes watching you on TV and things like that, you're still kind of like, okay, just get it over with, stop it, I just want to go home.
Yeah, that's often the way I feel. It's like, okay, I've had enough, I want to go home. That's something that we decided fairly early on we needed media attention, that this would be good. What I don't want to do by saying all this is scare other people off, because that's not typical. The media attention is not typical. Going to the Human Rights Commission usually does not involve media at all.
And if it did, hardly anyone would probably go.
That's right. That's right. That's typically not a factor. In this case, we wanted publicity. We wanted everyone to see what had happened. It was the first case of its kind here in Alberta, and we saw nothing but good coming out of that publicity. I was out of a job, so I had the time at the time as well.
Did you get job offers out of it then?
No, I didn't.
Did anyone
actually
call and say, you've been slighted by this?
Well, actually, I did have a couple of professors at the University of Alberta say they were going to look hard for a position that I could have there. Nothing really came out of any of that, but did find a job about 7 months later. So
great. Do you think you're a hero to people?
Well, some people have said that, and that puzzles me because I'm not the one that's doing anything here. The real heroes in this, I think, are the lawyers, are the people who are donating their efforts on on the back end of things.
Like
I'm in front of the camera. My name is being used, but I'm not doing the work. Yeah, Sheila Greco and her law firm who are donating all their time, all their services. Just a marvelous thing. All the people who are organizing fundraisers, all the people who just keep this in the forefront. I think they're much more the heroes. They're working on the front end.
So, Delwin Vriend, common guy. What does the future hold for you? Or if you could pick your future, what would you like to see happen? I mean, there's talk that the case will be appealed to the Supreme Court, and
we have in fact filed for leave with the Supreme Court, so we hope to hear back from the Supreme Court on whether or not they will hear a case. And
within the next 10 years.
Well, if they will,
process, right?
if they will hear it, then it'll likely be within the next year and a half. But my hopes, of course, are that Alberta comes into line with the rest of the country, that we do actually see the protection that the rest of Canadians see with respect to human rights laws.
So when I was about 16 or 15 or something like that, there was this politician in I was living in Kitimat in BC, and this young upstart politician who had this thing about pop bottles. There were a whole bunch of pop bottles exploding on people, and I thought he was the coolest guy on earth. I gave up my rock star addictions, and I had a favorite MP. So you, Svend Robinson, saved me from a life of Peter Criss and Paul Stanley. And
that's amazing. You're the first person that's actually remembered this rather unusual start to my parliamentary career. I remember it well because I actually took one of these 750 milliliter pop bottles into the House of Commons. It was 1979, and I was the consumer affairs critic for the NDP. My God, I didn't realize anybody remembered that.
Oh, it was a very powerful moment for me because that was probably the start of my activism. I was like, well, if someone cares, you know, about little chihuahuas that are, you know, being blown up by pop bottles.
And little children.
Yeah, I guess that's more important. Now, you started your political career at 12 years old. What motivates a 12-year-old to get involved in politics?
Well, actually, I got started in politics in Alberta, in the socialist stronghold of Lethbridge. I was involved. I was elected as the grade 7 rep from at Wilson Junior High in Lethbridge. But no, I got involved in as a young New Democrat. You're right, at an early age. And I think, like a lot of people, originally it was from my folks, from my family. My mother was very much committed to social justice, and so when she took me around with her as we distributed leaflets for the NDP candidate, the first NDP candidate I worked for was Tommy Douglas, federally. I guess it got in my blood, and I've been doing it since. And
just keep going and going and going. I mean, it doesn't sound like, it sounds like your life is about politics, and that room for anything else is almost secondary.
Now, I try to make time for other things. I mean, I think a person that is totally consumed with anything, whether it's politics or journalism or anything else, ultimately that's not healthy. I mean, I think so. For me, I enjoy the outdoors very much. I've got a sea kayak. I try to get out kayaking whenever I get a chance. I ski. In the summertime, I hike and I cycle. So for me, that's an important part of my life. But I feel very privileged to do the work I do. Certainly, the additional challenge since 1988 of being openly gay has been quite extraordinary. I mean, it's been a roller coaster politically, but I still enjoy it, and I feel just a real sense of honor to be able to do the work that I do.
Well, what motivated you to come out?
I guess I had always hoped, from the time that I was first elected, I'd hoped that at some point I would be able to be open. Not to have to choose my words so carefully. It's not that I ever lied, but I just chose my words very carefully, and I lived the way that W.H. Auden talked about, a wonderful poet who was also gay. Neither proclaim nor pretend, he said. Well, I didn't pretend, but I didn't proclaim. And for me, ultimately, what changed it was the reality that too many young people, young lesbians, gay men, bisexuals, felt terribly alone, looked out around their communities and in their country and didn't see anybody that they knew was gay or lesbian. And I wanted to break that silence. I wanted to end that invisibility and to say, look, we are everywhere. Gay and lesbian people are contributing to our communities, to our country, in Parliament, in the arts, in all walks of life, and feel good about yourself. Also, of course, living in the middle of this devastating and numbing epidemic of AIDS, and seeing the reality that too many gay men, particularly, who lived with the virus, had to also deal with the additional virus of homophobia and bigotry and hatred, and saying to people, look, for God's sake, stop this. Treat people with equality, with respect, with dignity, whatever their sexual orientation may be. And that's what ultimately led me to make the decision. Most of my political colleagues thought it was suicide, especially 6 months before an election. But in the end, as you know, I was re-elected with probably the biggest majority I ever won with.
Well, it sounds like you have a tremendous sense of responsibility to society, but I'm sure that there have been repercussions, things that, I mean, for example, just the word gay prefacing your reality. That must be difficult.
Yeah, in fact, I was concerned for a long time that perhaps the only lens that a lot of people would view me through was the lens of being gay. But like other gay people, I have many facets to my life. I mean, that's one part of who I am. Obviously, it's an important part of who I am, but it's just one part of who I am, like any other person. And so I've been pleased, actually, that I don't think anybody can accuse me of being a single-issue politician. I've been involved in a whole range of issues, whether it's human rights issues, environmental issues, the question of dying with dignity, and many other issues. But you're right, it is a concern, and I think that part of what I'm hoping will be achieved by my coming out and by other people coming out is ultimately people saying, well, so what? Who cares? I mean, that should be the response. But it's still, unfortunately, the reality that, for example, in Alberta, openly gay and lesbian people put their jobs on the line. risk being thrown out of their homes or denied access to goods and services. As long as gay and lesbian, bisexual, transgendered Albertans are second-class citizens because human rights legislation doesn't cover them, there's going to be that fear of coming out.
And welcome back to Program Pride. That was just so exciting having Svend Robinson address the delegates at the Alberta Summit. We'd like to share with you now some of the coming events in your local area. On June 15th, the Illusions is celebrating their 6th annual birthday party in Calgary. For more information, please call Illusions at 236-7072. In Red Deer on June 1st, it's the Care to Dance Dance-a-thon. It's a fundraiser for the Red Deer AIDS Network. For more information, please call the Red Deer AIDS Network at 346-8858. As well, Argra is hosting the Canadian Rockies International Rodeo. That's taking place at the Simons Valley Ranch in Calgary, June 28th till the 30th. For more information, please call the Argra hotline at 541-8140. As well, June is Pride Month in Alberta, well, throughout the world, and we would really encourage you all to contact your local organizations to find out what is planned, what is happening for Pride Month, and how you can get more involved. And please attend those Pride Week events. Come out, in other words. As well, in August, the 15th till the 18th, the Alberta Camp Out is being held in Red Deer by GALA. And for more information about that, you should call the Red Deer Gay Lines at 340-2198. And finally, June 22nd is the date of the next Edmonton Vocal Minority Pride Concert. Tickets are available at local merchants or through Pride members. And up next, we're going to visit with some of the delegates and some of the participants in the trade fair at the Alberta Summit.
Welcome, Jennifer. You offer peer support in Lethbridge. What kind of things do you offer in Lethbridge for support for gay and lesbians?
In Lethbridge, we have an umbrella group which is called Gay and Lesbian Alliance of Lethbridge and Area, which is GALA, not GALA. And we have one access point through the phone, and that's our phone number, which makes sense. And on that line is the peer support line, and we have a bank of volunteers who staff that phone line Wednesdays from 7 to 10. And also I work out of that office with the Gay Community Development Project, so I'll answer that phone during the day. And right now we have, our stats since January are 1 new gay man a week and 1 lesbian every 2 months.
That's impressive.
Well, except for the lesbians, they're missing.
Just hiding, I think, for now. So you deal a lot with volunteers. Mm-hmm. Do you have trouble getting volunteers?
Actually, no, we don't have a problem getting volunteers. The gay community in Lethbridge is really responsive, but we have a problem keeping volunteers. And the reason for that is because Lethbridge's gay community is really transient. We have a college and a university. And we have a pipeline, we call it, to Calgary and Vancouver, where everyone moves.
With dealing with a lot of volunteers, do you have any problems with issues like confidentiality?
We haven't. We have dealt with confidentiality. That was one of the things we set out to deal with when we put the peer support line together, because it's important that when people call, they have safety. With things like call display and call trace, we wanted to make sure that right from the beginning there was never ever going to be any problems with that at all. Volunteers are bound by a confidentiality waiver, which is legal and binding.
So people can feel safe when they call the line that people won't go out and tell on them.
Yep. And all our we're networked locally with organizations such as the Samaritans and the Sexual Health Center, and they're all very aware of our confidentiality and how binding that is for us.
Do you offer anything outside of the peer support line for peer support in your community?
We have 2 support groups. We have one called Directions, which is for adults, and one called Link, which is for youth. They meet every second week, and those are peer-driven organizations. They have brought in facilitators to do specific topics, and it's really quite responsive. There was a need in the gay community, and we filled it with these 2 support groups, along with the peer support line.
Well, if anybody has any problems, what is the support line in Lethbridge?
where can you contact us?
Yes.
The phone number is 329-4666. We're also in the book, and anybody in Lethbridge, if you're from Lethbridge, any of the organizations can usually refer really good. If you can't remember where we are, we're easy to find.
I thank you very much,
welcome.
and I hope that this helps a lot of people out.
Thanks. Thank you.
Richard, I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about what CLAGPAG is doing these days.
Okay. Well, my name is Richard Gregory, and I'm from Calgary Lesbian and Gay Political Action Guild. And CLAGPAG has been very busy. It's a group that has been around since 1989 and have been lobbying towards equal rights for gays and lesbians, both federally and provincially. And in the most recent months, we've combined our forces with the Coalition for Human Rights in Alberta, a group that is made up at this time of about 76 different organizations, which are looking at fighting for the government to accept the recommendations that were put forth in the Equal and Rights and Dignity recommendation, which was part of the review panel's report put out when Jack O'Neill and his group, his review panel, went across the province, 1,700 recommendations, put forth those recommendations, 70-some recommendations, into the document, which is Equal and Rights and Dignity, and present it to the government. Now, this was a panel that was set up by the government for the purpose of reviewing Human Rights Commission and the Individual Rights Protection Act in Alberta, and then when they came forth with the recommendations, basically they have done very little to look at what those recommendations are. Right before us right now, we have Bill 24, and in Bill 24, which is the government's amended human rights legislation, it would leave us in Alberta with a less effective human rights commission and act than what we have at the present time, if it's accepted.
There were something like 80 recommendations, is that correct?
Over 70, almost 80 recommendations.
And the government decided to pick 20 out of it?
About 20. And basically they were, if you were to put the recommendations into focus as far as the primary recommendations, they've ignored them. One of the strongest recommendations that the review panel made was the independence of the review panel. What they've done is basically strangled the review panel, strangled the commission, and put it under the grip of the minister, basically.
Now, also at the federal level, CLAGPAG's had some really interesting liaisons there as well with Senator Gitter, sorry, Ron Gitter.
Ron Gitter has basically been very vocal as far as condemning what's going on in the province of Alberta right now. He's also done a lot of stuff with working with another group, which is Dignity, and getting that off the ground. I'd really suggest if anybody's interested in more information on what CLAGPAG is up to, because we have all kinds of neat initiatives happening at this time, that they could give us a call.
And
our
what's
phone
the phone number?
Our phone number is
drum roll, please.
266-5318.
Great.
So,
well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hopefully we'll be talking to you again very soon.
Great. Thanks a lot.
And we're back with Program Pride, once again at the Alberta Summit. I'm talking to Steve Mayo. And Steve, you're with Extensions?
Yeah, I run a community service called Extensions. It's a 24-hour-a-day touch-tone community service, kind of like the Talking Yellow Pages, copyright AGT, but it's a pink version. I started in October of '94, and it was because Clue magazine at the time was having difficulty printing the community directory and keeping it up to date.
That's a hard job to do. I mean, it's what, 100 entries?
100 organizations, that's right. And trying to reach out to all their organizations regularly as executive changes and phone numbers change and events are upcoming was really overwhelming for one volunteer to do. And so when they stopped printing it, I said, well, I have the equipment and the computers and the programming knowledge, so I decided let's put something online like Toronto has with Extra Magazine and Vancouver has, and so I had the equipment and started programming it, and it's been online for about 18 months now.
Okay. And has it grown since its initial stages?
Yeah, it took a while for people to get used to it, and now it's getting about 500 calls a month. It's got more than just a voicemail, more than just an announcement system on it. It's got voicemail services for organizations that might not want to have an office with overhead. It's got a schedule of events that are coming up regularly each week, like regular Monday meetings, regular Tuesday meetings with Calgarians Networking Club. Friday would be Front Runners runs downtown and stuff like that. It's also got monthly event calendars and a Pride Week section as well.
And all you need is Touch-tone phone.
All you need is a touch-tone phone. It's absolutely free for all community organizations. All the services are free for community organizations. We're involved in ISCCA.
Which is what?
The Imperial Sovereign Coalition of Cards, a charity organization. Well, that's about it. Upcoming.
So how does the funding, how does it stay alive?
Well, I've got sponsors to cover the phone line, and I donate everything else. I mean,
okay, great.
My own time.
Excellent. So tell me about making brunch.
Well, every 5 weeks I've been holding a brunch at my place for friends, and a great networking time away from environments that might not be so conducive to that. And it's a good family get-together time. Well, I'm having a big brunch on June 16th. It's going to be held at Chicken Hawk's Bistro downtown. Tickets are being sold in advance only for $10. $1 is going towards Sharp Foundation, and it's going to be an all-you-can-eat brunch. J. Steve's Sunday Pride Brunch. And
the number to reach it is?
Extensions, of course, 777-9499, extension FOOD, F-O-O-D, and that's 3663. And tickets in advance only.
Great. Thanks a lot, Steve.
No problem. Glad to be here.
But I think we should celebrate our accomplishments. As Timothy Findlay wrote to me shortly after I came out in 1988, he said about being gay, he said, "It's not the only issue in our lives, but it should be a source of strength to us that we've had to weather the bad times that come to us from being who we are. My hope is that we can use that strength to make gains that have nothing to do with gay and lesbian rights. So very much has gone awry, and the enemy increases." And yes, the enemy does increase. The enemies of poverty, of racism, of sexism. But just as the enemy increases, as sometimes we feel a little sense of despair, let's salute the courage of those who confront and fight that enemy. Small groups of people. People like Corey, who was nervous as heck about getting up here and standing up here, but had the courage to do it, and that makes such a difference. And we may be small in numbers, but as Margaret Mead reminded us, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Thank you for helping to change our world in Red Deer and in Alberta.